James Gunn's The Suicide Squad is out, and it only made about $4 million on Thursday night box office, which is not that great, but then again, we're in pandemic era, so I'm really curious to see how this whole weekend goes. Hey, welcome back to the Ping Pong Flix. My name is Chris Wong. Today we're going to be talking about Matt Reeves' The Batman and the alleged major reshoots for that film. Then James Gunn reveals his early concept for a Suicide Squad versus Superman movie? And that still may happen. Producer Charles Roven talked in more detail about the Ayer cut of Suicide Squad and his views on whether or not Nolan and Snyder could return. And finally, Charles Roven also revealed that there could be another Justice League down the line. Let's talk about Matt Reeves' The Batman. This is coming from Giant Freaking Robot. It says, Warner Brothers has a problem with The Batman and they're going back for reshoots. Again, I think we've already covered reshoots, right? But now they're saying this is a new round of reshoots and it's major. At this time, the studio is having major reshoots done. Warner Brothers isn't happy with where the Robert Pattinson movie is at. They feel that major changes need to happen to the film currently slated for a March 4th, 2022 release. This doesn't seem like a good sign at all. We weren't able to learn specifically what Warner Brothers feels the problems are. Now, rumor had it before that they've had problems with it being too dark, and just maybe after the reception of The Suicide Squad, they feel like maybe you should make it a little lighter tone. Still keep it rated R, but I guess throw some jokes in there. But not only Giant Freaking Robot, viewer Anon, an insider within Hollywood, also had this to say. So, to put my cards on the table, here is what I have heard about The Batman. The cut thus far didn't fully meet Warner Brothers' expectations, and since I trust Matt Reeves a hell of a lot more than I trust Warner Brothers, they should stay the hell back and let him finish his movie. Oh, that doesn't sound good at all. I hope they've learned their lesson that if they let directors like Zack Snyder and James Gunn, they get great products. But Viewer Anon added this as well. It doesn't mean the movie is in trouble. Warner Bros. Was shaky on Joker through its entire production and still let Todd Phillips do his thing. I encourage them to do the same thing here if my info is accurate. Now, yes, this came from an actual insider and Giant Freaking Robots who have been having a lot of confirmation so far on their exclusives. I don't know what to think other than maybe it's just a small, minor thing. Like maybe the execs saw the Suicide Squad and says, hey, can we interject some of that into your Batman? And maybe Matt Reeves is like, we'll do a little. I don't know. I'm not sure. But it's not like they don't like Matt Reeves or Robert Pattinson. Robert Pattinson has exclusive first look deals with Warner Brothers, and Matt Reeves has a lot more projects coming down the line. I don't think that relationship is breaking, but it feels like something Warner Brothers would do, reacting to the Suicide Squad and saying, hey, maybe we should inject a little bit more humor in here. Oh God, please. Leave Matt Reeves alone. Speaking of the Suicide Squad, now James Gunn's The Suicide Squad releases out this week. Hopefully you got to see my review for it. Surprisingly, I actually dug in more than I thought I would. It could be because I was already a fan of James Gunn's Slither and Super, and it's very Quentin Tarantino-esque in its hyper-violence, gratuitous gore, which is something my wife totally hated. But apparently there was an early concept for the Suicide Squad to fight none other than Superman. This is coming from DCEU Direct. They translated a German interview with James Gunn. When I started writing The Suicide Squad, one idea was that they would fight Superman. The Suicide Squad has to catch Superman for some reason. That was all. Just a vague idea. It's gotten out of hand or is being controlled by someone, and then this group of lousy supervillains has to face the most powerful hero in the world. Boy, does that sound really familiar. As you've seen the video from behind that screenshot, yeah, Rocksteady is definitely making that movie. I mean, video game. Rocksteady's Suicide Squad Kills the Justice League has exactly that. In that trailer, at least. I don't know how much Superman is going to be in there. I hope there's a lot. Superman, along with probably the Justice League, is being mind-controlled by Brainiac. I could totally see them being mind-controlled by Starro as an early concept. And that would have made really cool. Make a lot of sense. Even though the game is coming out and it happened in the comics, I still don't know how they cannot just die with one hit from Superman. How's that going to work as a movie? I don't know, but this is what James Gunn said. I like this idea, and if DC does this sequel, then please, not without me. And if he moves forward with that, he could definitely do a Suicide Squad versus Superman movie, or even Suicide Squad versus the Justice League. Like I said, realistically, I don't know how that would work, but I'm really curious how that will come out. And maybe it's just me wanting more Justice League. I still think that that's a pretty cool idea. Maybe Suicide Squad 3. After all, Warner Brothers was calling up James Gunn and says, James Gunn, Superman. James Gunn, Superman. Yeah, I get it. You want me to do a Superman movie. Fine, I'll just make him a bad guy. Which is cool, but, I still want to see him in The Flash, Black Adam, heck, his own movie, and of course, Zack Snyder's Justice League. Well, since we're on the subject of Suicide Squad, let's talk about David Ayer's cut of the Suicide Squad. Well, DC producer Charles Roven revealed a little detail about the past 2016 Suicide Squad during production, and that he actually saw the other edit. Richard Succo and I produced Suicide Squad. When the studio was hoping to replace John Gilroy, the original editor, we suggested Lee. I had worked with Lee on Chris's movies, The Dark Knight trilogy. He's one of the truly great editors. He was charged with trying to take a slightly different approach, but not totally change the tone of the movie with his work. Clearly, from what David is saying, that was the version that he liked best of all the versions. There was a tremendous amount of different feelings between what the studio wanted and what David wanted at the time. It was a negotiation, for sure, of what the ultimate cut was going to be. So obviously he just admitted right there that the studio was having a back and forth between versions of the Suicide Squad. Well, it appears they came down to 2 versions. The interesting thing was when we tested the Ayer version, to be honest, I can't sit here and remember how we got to that edited version, who was editing that edited version, but it wasn't Lee. It was somebody else that came in. The studio version was also different editors as well. We tested both versions. They tested exactly the same. Because they tested exactly the same, David and the studio and ourselves, meaning Rich and I and the heads of DC at the time, John Berg and Jeff Johns, we all sat in a room and tried to come up with what would be the best of both versions. Obviously, the movie made a really nice piece of change. Audience liked it enough for us to want to do a sequel, but it definitely wasn't the exact vision of David, and it definitely wasn't the exact vision of the studio. Yeah, he could probably be playing politically both sides of it, that, hey, the studio never really got what they wanted, and David never really got what they wanted. Honestly, seeing that James Gunn put out his version of Suicide Squad with what he says is almost zero meddling from the studio, that kind of tells you that, let's try it. Let's have David Ayer release his Suicide Squad. Let's see what the audience thinks. And obviously, test audience is different from a regular audience. There's all these different groups, different ideas, and it's not really that broad. But in this case, it's really important that David Ayer gets to choose which version. His name is on it, and if he says it's almost done, or at least done, let's see it. Now, interestingly enough, in this Hollywood Reporter article, Charles Roven also commented on whether Christopher Nolan and Zack Snyder could ever come back to DC. I'm going to give you a Terry Gilliam quote. Terry Gilliam and my first wife, late studio executive Don Steele, fought bitterly about the Baron Munchausen cut, and he was sure he would never ever be involved with anything having to do with Don Steele. And then I offered him 12 Monkeys, and he laughed, and he said, well, you really can't ever burn a bridge in Hollywood, can you? The fact of the matter is, I would never say never about anything when it comes to entertainment. Different ideas, ways of coming back around. And that's true. I remember when people said Snyder Cut was never going to come out. That never happens in Hollywood. And here we are. The Snyder Cut came out, and hopefully meaning we could restore the Snyderverse one day, and maybe David Ayer could get his cut as well. Hey, why not? Now, I've mentioned this many times before, that even though we're not getting the sequels to Zack Snyder's Justice League at least anytime soon, hopefully Discovery, please do the right thing, but as a DC property, DC itself, they definitely need to have Justice League on their plate somewhere down the line. I mean, it would be like saying Marvel's never going to do Avengers ever again, which is just absolutely untrue. Kevin Feige will always have an Avenger down the line. So Warner Brothers and DC definitely would probably have a Justice League down the line. But are they even talking about it at this point? Well, DC producer Charles Roven actually commented about a possible Justice League. This is what he had to say. But still have an affiliation with some more Suicide Squads, which I'm thrilled about. I hope James will, when he's got some time, come back and see if he's going to do another one of these, because he did such an amazing job. I would definitely be a part of that. Probably another Justice League, although I think that's a number of years away. So this is probably a first indication or first time a producer from Warner Brothers side actually says something about a new Justice League movie. For the brand alone, a new Justice League movie needs to happen, whether or not it's Zack Snyder's Justice League 2 and 3, which also needs to happen, by the way. It's too valuable to just throw it away. But I'm also curious what that team would be. I'm imagining it would probably be a bigger team, hopefully with Ben Affleck, Batman, and Henry Cavill, Superman, Wonder Woman, and Aquaman, all of them returning, maybe even add a few more. I mean, we're going to get Batgirl, we're going to get Supergirl, Blue Beetle, they're going to expand. He also mentions a number of years away. So, him being the producer of even Zack Snyder's Justice League, it could be Zack Snyder's Justice League 2 and 3 as well. It doesn't actually count that out. And a number of years away, well, that means it's possible that Walter Hamada and Toby Emmerich don't re-up their contract and they're gone. Discovery is already rushing to get everything in place. I'm really curious about the future from here on out. So I'm sure in a couple years, the slate's probably going to look very different. Things are going to change, and hopefully that means that we could have Snyderverse projects, we could have this other projects in the cinemas, just all out DC.